Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge. J.R. Gregory here on the call, beside me in the booth, as always, racing Ron Mons in the production facility today, Samuli Kumo, and we are at Spa, driving the Radical SR10, 425 horsepower, 725 kilos, no traction control, no ABS, and we're broadcasting the top split of this time slot on public servers. So if you'd like to sign up and join us, you could appear on this Apex Racing TV broadcast. And I'm here to tell you, Ron and I did some laps out here in preparation for the broadcast today, and this car loves Spa. It was absolutely fantastic. So take a spin in the SR10, see if you like it. I guarantee that you will. I also guarantee that it will make you a better driver in every car that you drive. And we got some great tracks upcoming: Brands Hatch, Mossport, Mount Panorama, and the season finale for this season will be the green hell itself, Nordschleife. So here we are at Spa, located in the Belgian countryside outside the municipality of Stavelot. This course began life as a road course on public roads back in 1922. You heard that right. We have been racing here at this facility for over 100 years. Back in 1924, they conducted their first 24-hour race, and 25 brought the first Grand Prix. And of course, race fans will know that this track is currently host to F1, WEC, and European Le Mans Series. Our current configuration, 4.3 miles, 7 clicks, 20 corners, and Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes W09 F1 car has the current lap record at 146. 286, and we're in the midst of qualifying here. And let me just run through the season top 10 real quickly. We got James Barry in P1 on the season, Kike Ming, Andreas Friedrich, Christopher Yanakis, David Walters, Luke Maxwell, Heinz Braun, Tonio Ordires, Bruno Vittorino, and Chad Fox are your top 10 so far this season. And as you take a look at our timing tower there, we have a number of our top 10 drivers joining us here today for our 2100 GMT broadcast. So we are going to see some great racing today. Welcome. And Ron, this track just loves this car. The car loves the track. Only really one problem area that I could see, and that is the bus stop, of course, which asks these radicals to do a couple of things it's not awesome at. One is woeing down from a high rate of speed, and the other one is putting power down out of the low speed corner. So what do you think we're going to see out of these radical drivers today?
Well, I think we're going to see some fantastic racing, obviously, at a track like this, so straight line dependent, where the draft plays a massive role, even in practice sessions. I mean, the draft would probably add about half a second to your lap if you're able to get in the slipstream of someone, so it's going to play a big role in this race. But I think what we're going to see a lot of as well is we're going to see a lot of drivers make some mistakes. I know I counted the other 1Xs, I counted the off-track incident points a lot in the other practice laps that we had earlier today. I'm sure even though these drivers are probably a lot better than me, they'll still definitely rack up those incident points as they drive these radicals to their absolute limit. So I think we're going to see some great racing, but I think we're also going to see plenty of incidents.
Yeah, that is for sure. And yeah, really looking forward to this one. This season has brought us some really fantastic races. We had a great one at Olton Park a couple weeks ago. Last week was another great one because it was another one of these big open tracks that these radicals really seem to thrive on. And riding along with James Barry now in a late qualifying lap, we'll see if he can take a little bite out of that 0.46 that he is behind Castro right now, your current pole sitter at 213.017. Barry probably coming across the line here on his final lap. Let's see if he can move up any here. And let's see, what did he pull off there? Yeah, he manages to tick off a couple tenths. He'll move up ahead of Andreas Friedrich move up into P4. Friedrich Barry, I'm sorry, of course, our season leader so far as qualifying ticks down.
We have a whole lot of heavy hitters in this field. Gomez is definitely one of them, who goes to the pole position at the last possible moment at a 2:12.8. That is a fantastic lap there. But yeah, we have plenty of heavy hitters throughout this field, just looking through the drivers on this grid, as now Cadolas has actually set a new pole position time. So a lot of drivers trading fast laps right now. And Franco Sanchez looks to do another one. You can see a purple sector in the middle there. Actually, is he on a slow lap? It looks like these drivers are setting 4-minute lap times, but a lot of drivers putting in some good laps at the moment, and they're trying to move up a space. Sanchez moves up 10 to break into P4, but we have plenty of fantastic drivers in this field. Sanchez is one of them. He's been a fixture in this series. Karakopoulos, who we're following now, he's definitely been a fixture throughout this season. We have some other names that we haven't seen so far on these Radical broadcasts this season, mainly Holkonen currently in P8, who we saw quite a few seasons ago. He was a fixture throughout the past few seasons so far this year, so it's nice to see him out tonight.
Wow, and breaking the 213 barrier, that is nuts. Folks, I am not Michael Schumacher, Ralph Schumacher, or even Willie Schumacher, but I was pretty happy to start tickling the 215 flats. These guys are flying in these radicals, but here is your starting grid. Johnny Chiolas nips the pole position there at the end of qualifying in a 2:1:12.8. Next to him will be Chris Gomez. Row 2, Andre Castro. Beside him, staple here in the Radical Racing Challenge, Andreas Friedrich. The next row, Sanchez. Bjorklund next to him. James Berry, your season leader, back in P7. We'll be looking for him to try to work his way forward. Mika Holkonen next to him. That is a great race driver name. In the next row, Mike Bussin and my cousin Craig Gregory there in P10. Robert Woodward in P11. David J. Walters in P12. And after the scroll here, we'll get a couple more. There's Myron Ayani in 13. Chad Fox here from the U.S. in P14. Hesterman and Murata in 15 and 16. And in the last row, Kyriakopoulos and Mauricio W. I guess it might be Mauricio Nunez. But Kyriakopoulos unable to get a good qualifying lap, which is unusual. He's usually scrapping up towards the front here. We'll take a quick look at our conditions. Pretty modest track temperature of 80 degrees, so an over hot track is not going to be playing a role in this one here as we wait for the timer to wind down. The cars are gridded up here on the Grand Prix straight. They'll be taking a green flag from a standing start, heading down the Grand Prix straight into the hairpin on these cold tires. Can always create some sketchy moments, so we'll see if they can get away clean here as the lights tick down. And we are green. Chiolas gets away clean. He's going to hold the lead. Gomez is going to lose P2 briefly to Castro, who's going to nip him there coming in to the hairpin, turn 1. Now we got Chiolas from Castro, Gomez from Bjorklund, from Sanchez. Looks like we had somebody drop down there. Looks like Gomez fell off a little bit. Hulkinen fell off a little bit. But here we go, heading into Eau Rouge here for the first time in our 11-lap sprint.
That driver that you mentioned that was falling back quite badly was Andreas Friedrich. He had a horrible start now, and I see another driver falling back who might have picked up a slowdown coming through Eau Rouge and Radio, and that was something that I got bitten by multiple times during the practice laps. I'm sure you did as well, JR. Just getting bit by the slowdowns, which are really, they penalize you horribly if you get it slightly wrong coming through a Rouge and Radio. But we got some more side-by-side action. Farther down the field, there's contact there. Oh, that's a pile up there. There's cars spinning all over the place. That's Ayani involved. Massive contact there with Bjorklund. Murata gets through just barely. There's Ayani that was in the middle of that. That's tough for him. He's not been very fortunate in these starts. We've seen him get involved in some incidents throughout this series, and it's just tough breaks for him that usually take him out of these races. But a lot of drivers getting contact very early on, and a lot of drivers having their races ruined effectively immediately. Yeah, that is a shame. Iani looks like he got turned there and collected Bjorklund and Hesterman there coming out of Lacombe, and that is something, we have not seen a lot of that the last couple of races. We've seen some really excellent races and not a lot of hargy-bargy off of the start, but they could not keep it together there coming off the Kemmel Straight into and out of Lacombe. And that's where you saw one of those drivers turn and kind of create a pileup. Looks like Ayani has taken the tow, and his day may be over, and we're going to watch him now. That's the second part of Lacombe. Now he's going to head down toward Bruxelles. Oh, and somebody checked up in front of him, it looked like, caused him to go evasive. He locks up, hits the outside wall, and man, there is just a pileup. And as I said, we have not seen a lot of that kind of argy-bargy action so far this season. These starts have been pretty clean, but not this one. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that throughout the season. These drivers are usually very patient, and then they start to turn up the wick a little bit as we approach the end of this race. But even though we have still so much left to play for. We've got a quarter of a Grand Prix distance. We've got 11 laps to contend with in this race. These drivers are definitely breaking at their elbows a little bit more, and there's drivers going off all over the place. There's Woodward there going off at the start of the right before the final chicane. Might have made contact there coming in. We might get replay to see what happened there, but just a lot of drivers breaking their elbows out very early on. It's not the most ill-advised. Well, it's not the most ill-advised, if I could spin my words out. It's not the most ill-advised thing that these drivers could do, but still not really the smartest move to do, to be racing as aggressive as they have so far this race. They're making mistakes. They're crashing into each other. It's creating a lot of action here, but I'm sure these drivers are feeling a little bit frustrated with each other right now.
Yeah, and only one lap in, we've got 4 cars in the pits, and we have not seen that once this season. We've only seen a handful of retirements across 4 races, so very rough start for our broadcast here at Radical Racing Challenge. And meanwhile, up front, Keolis has driven away to almost a 2-second gap from Castro. Gomez, Sanchez, and Barry will make up your top 5. Barry has moved up 2 positions. Hard charger so far. Nunez started in the basement, as you recall. I'm not sure if he even put down a qualifying time. He's already moved up due to these incidents, 8 positions, and he's sitting in P10 right now, last points position, if you will. And here we are watching Boyson. He's got my cousin Gregory polishing his bumper, and Walter's behind him. And as these cars settle into a rhythm, we're going to see some trains forming, and it's very important to get in one of these trains, or the train will get away from you on those long straightaways. You need the draft to keep up with the crowd here.
Yeah, it's so important to have the draft, you know, just losing 0.5 of a second in the practice laps we did earlier. With the draft, I could probably broken out of the 2:15s, but without the draft, you're effectively hopeless, even if you drive the middle section of this track so well. But even without the draft, your leader right now, Cordolis right now, is setting some pretty good lap times, was at the fastest lap before Andreas Friedrich actually pipped him to that. So I think Andreas Friedrich is a man on a mission right now. Started up towards the front, then had that horrible start and dropped back like a rock, dropped down to 14th. I believe he even dropped down to 15th when everything was said and done. But he's made up through the field right now. He's currently running in 9th. So I think Andreas Friedrich, if he has some really good pace to contend with throughout the rest of this race, I think he'll definitely be one to watch. You can see him at the back of that shot as we see some train action going down the Kemmel straightaway. We got a 4-pack here, a pack farther behind. It's that train action that you mentioned here, JR. Really, it's opponents, regardless of where these radicals are running, but especially at a track like this, which is so straight line dependent. Oh, there's a car spinning off there. That's Boosin there spinning, coming through Malmedy. So tough breaks for these drivers. More mistakes piling up, so a lot of drivers making mistakes very early on. But getting back to the point that I did mention before I was going to pass it off to you, JR, some train action that we were expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw nice train forming there of all those radicals with the matching liveries. Castro, Gomez, Sanchez, and Barry all lined up there, and you could see Gomez flashing his headlights there, feeling a little racy, and feeling that Castro ahead, holding him up a little bit.
I think these drivers are feeling mightily impatient at this stage of the race. We just got a replay of the awful start that Andreas Friedrich had. Unfortunately, from my perspective, I'm sure it was from your perspective as well, JR. Our replay was kind of glitched for some reason, but we saw a replay of that terrible start that Friedrich had. Just the wheel spin is really important. You got to find the right balance with the clutch, the brake, and the gas at that start, and especially with a really short run going into turn 1. It's really important to get that good start, and unfortunately for Andreas Friedrich, it's just a very simple mistake there that could cost him dearly, and sadly for him, it cost him very dearly, very early on.
Yeah, it looks like we're back to this train now with Castro, Gomez, Sanchez, and Barry. That's your P2 through 5, as you see Keolis there in the foreground driving away. And Castro is not getting a lot of love from his, one would think, teammates here. We've seen him get flashed a couple of times, and he says, no, I'm not going to move over. If you want to pass me, you're going to have to pass me the old-fashioned way. And cars stacking up behind Castro. It'll be interesting to see what develops here on the Kemmel Straight, because you know there's going to be a draft. How are these drivers going to play it?
Oh, these drivers are playing it. It's really it's a strategy thing more often than not. Just trying to figure out when you take that run, when you go for the dive, and you don't want to burn up your tires too hard. Otherwise, you're going to be in really tough shape towards the end. We're seeing some hard battling here. Sanchez and Gomez nearly made contact as they went through Lake Home there, but thankfully for them, they managed to get through there cleanly. But just very close quarters racing at this stage. These drivers are giving no quarter to each other right now. It's great to watch, and these drivers are definitely feeling really stressed out at the moment. None of these drivers are really budging, even though this is probably one of the longest races on the schedule, certainly one of the longest tracks that we've run on, and even though it's 11 laps, only 11 laps here, one of the shortest lap-wise races that we have this season, there's still so much to play for in this race, and there's so many places to try and pull off a move safely. These drivers are just feeling they're seeing the red mist right now, and they're really pushing their race cars really over the limit in some cases.
Yeah, and Friedrich working hard here, as you can see, to make up for that bad start. He's down 3 from his qualifying position, currently running in P7. He is polishing my cousin Gregory's bumper. He wants Gregory, and I don't think Friedrich is going to be behind him for much longer. And boy, I'll tell you, a moment ago, great camera work by our producer Samuli as he caught Barry stuffing it around the outside, going into, oh my goodness, here we go. And Friedrich is going to get it done into Blanchimont, and you got to have some stones to make that move happen. But Friedrich intimidating Gregory there, made it known that he was going to go for it regardless, and Gregory backed out and let him through as Friedrich continues to try to climb his way back out of the hole that he dug for himself on that start.
That was a balls of titanium move, but it was a move that we were expecting for some time. Andreas Friedrich is usually one of the fastest in this series, and if it wasn't for that bad start, he'd probably be in that massive pack that we see from Sanchez through to Gomez. He'd probably be involved in that fight right now, if not separating between Cadolis and Castro right now. So he would have been up contending in this race if it wasn't for that start. So he wanted to get that move done, but it's not over yet as Gregory is looking to get the move done going down the Camel straightaway. Gregory had that fantastic run. He had that very strong slipstream effect, and he's looking for the move going around the outside, going on the brakes, going into Lake Calm, and it's not going to be close enough. Friedrich holds on to that position. We were expecting that move to come at some point because Gregory was holding him up a little bit, and I think Friedrich was feeling a little bit impatient. So that might be the reason why he went for a very ballsy move there, but worked out, and he's holding on to that position for now.
Yeah, great work here, and here we are looking at that train up front again. But I'll tell you, the story of the race here may be whether Friedrich can close that gap ahead to Gomez. Right now, that's about 3.5 seconds, but there's a little infighting back and forth among those matching radicals, and that may give Friedrich an opportunity to close that gap down and join this train and participate in a little bit of this scrapping that's going on. And meanwhile, Cajolis, obviously, the main beneficiary of this little scrap because he has continued to drive away. He's got about a 3-second gap going and is looking good currently to hold on to that first.
Yeah, he is looking very spicy at this point. That was some spicy action there. I believe that was Barry. Actually, no, that was Castro that went off coming through turn 16 there. That was not the, that was an interesting interpretation of track limits there. That's not a mistake you want to make. And it's going to wreak havoc to him running in that final podium spot. I was expecting Barry to possibly look for a move going into the bus stop, having a mistake like that, and hitting that gravel, which of course in this season of iRacing has been reworked, so that gravel is like hitting a brick wall this season. So I was expecting there for Castro to just be slowed up so badly by that mistake that he would have been at risk of losing a position to Barry, but never mind that. He's now trying to be very racy with Sanchez up ahead. They nearly made contact going through turn 1, and I think this battle is going to heat up really well going down the Camel straightaway.
Yeah, this train definitely looking really racy. There may have been just a little smooch there going through La Source, and watch this draft, folks. You can see the time gaps dropping on the timing tower, and what we may see here, oh no, he's backing out. And what I was going to say was we saw Barry take that outside pass into Lacombe there. And here at Spa, that's a move that you need to learn if you want to move past somebody who's blocking the entrance to Lacombe. It's kind of natural to cover the inside there, but there is an outside line with a kind of separate braking marker, and you can make that outside pass stick as we saw Barry do earlier. So again, this train still chugging along. It's Sanchez from Castro from Berry there, 2 through 5, and about 1.2 seconds separating these 4 Radical SR10s.
I gotta imagine with how hard these are battling, you can see Friedrich now is now very clearly ahead of Gregory. So I think Friedrich is now going to try and eye up closing that gap. It's still pretty big between him and Gomez up ahead. But I think with how hard they're battling in these final 5 laps, I think Friedrich might be able to close that gap. And for all we know, we might see Andres Friedrich sneak a podium. That would be a fantastic recovery if he managed to go from P4 at the start, then have a terrible start and drop down to P14 or even P15, I think, within 1 point, just momentarily. To go from P14, then back up into the podium spots would be a fantastic race from Andreas Friedrich. And I think with how hard these drivers are battling, it very much could happen. So we'll just have to wait and see how things play out in the final half of this race.
Yeah, and our Simuli showing you our sector times there. Friedrich is taking little bites out of this train. And if he is able to penetrate these 4 teammates, he'd have to get past 3 of them to make a podium position. If he can pull that off, he'll definitely earn my admiration. We've seen some great drives from Friedrich, but he dug himself quite a hole, and he's got his work cut out for him here as we start lap 7 with 4 to go. So if he has a secret button to push or a secret wick to light, it is time to get moving, because this train's going to get away from him here if he doesn't make something happen soon.
I think it's time to kick on that nitrous because Friedrich has to close up the gap. Really the most important part of the track for him is just the middle section of this circuit, because right now he's not close enough to the train up ahead to really get that very strong slipstream effect, but he is close enough to Gregory behind whereby he can lose some positions with the slipstream that they're getting. So he's kind of in no man's land right now. He really needs to make up a lot of time, but one thing that these drivers are doing in this 4-car pack here is they're not battling each other in the middle section of this racetrack. They're keeping line of stern going through the tight, twisty section of the Spa track, and I think it's playing well to these drivers. They're still maintaining the same gap to Friedrich. He's closing in a little bit, but he's still fairly far behind, all things considered. I don't think he'll be able to close that gap up in the final stages of this race if things don't change rapidly. Something dramatic will have to happen for him to close up that gap, so he's really going to have to turn up the wicks, kick on the nitrous if he wants to close up to that gap, because I think if he does, he'll definitely be in a very good spot and maybe even grab a podium here.
Yeah, watching Bjorklund and Murata here, they've been dicing back and forth. They have actually changed positions a couple of times in this lap. We didn't see exactly what happened, but they have been dicing and banging back there, fighting for that P12. And that's one of the great things about these Radical races. It doesn't matter where in the field you are, you can find somebody to race, and the racing is rock solid as we watch Bjorklund and Murata almost getting into the back section here to complete this lap.
Yeah, we got a chance to drive a little bit with Murata, and he was up at the top of the session. He was fairly quicker than everyone else in that practice session, but it just shows you can be up towards the top, but when you come to these top split races, you'll still be a very long way from the top. So Kenji Murata is definitely a very quick driver, but even with the quick speed that he showed in that practice session, he's still fairly slow compared to the rest of the field right now, running in P13, qualified towards the back. Certainly not discrediting Kenji as a driver. You know, it takes a lot of skill and tenacity to keep this Radical going at a very fast speed so consistently at a track which is as challenging as this. But right now Murata is definitely in a very tough spot right now. I think Bjorklund is starting to pull away, but now we're switching our attention to the battle that we've been following for so long now. Sanchez and Castro going side by side. Castro pulls off a fantastic move coming through Lake Holm. That round the outside move that you hinted at last lap, JR, he managed to pull that off beautifully.
Yeah, I love that move. It is absolutely critical to learn if you race a lot at Spa. As I said, the natural reaction coming down Kemmel Straight when you got somebody on your tail is to move right, cover the inside, and the only way to deal with that as an attacker is go around the outside, as we saw Barry do earlier. Castro pulls it off there, and we got a little bit of shuffling among these matching Radicals up front, and great racing so far. Friedrich still I'm not sure if he's going to be able to reel them in. He's been riding about a 2.5-second gap for a few laps here as we reach the final stages, but it could be that we're going to see some more shuffling between these 2 through 5 that we've been following before this one is over. We're just completing lap 8 now, so we got 9, 10, and 11 remaining. And remember, folks, tire management is a thing on these radicals. We've spoken to many of these drivers, and we know that if you drive the radical hard through the entire race, even a shorter sprint race, the car transforms toward the end. So if we see somebody's pace falling off toward the end, we know that they may not have treated their tires as they need to be treated to make it 11 laps at a good pace.
I think that tire issue is really put on full display at a track like this, where besides the few straightaways on this circuit, there's really little reprieve for these tires. They have very little room to rest. But one man that has managed it quite well is Johnny Cajolas, who right now is about 3.5 seconds ahead of Castro. And as that pack continues to battle, I think he's really in the catbird seat right now. Just a pull away, he can afford to really lean on those tires a bit. He's been setting very consistent and very good laps all throughout this race. So I think right now what he's just trying to do is just make it to the end. A track like this, which is very easy to make a mistake, you can get yourself caught up quite badly. But now we're seeing the battling continue here between Sanchez and Castro. Sanchez is looking for revenge on Castro, going into the same section where they went side by side last lap. They made contact on the brakes coming into Lake Holm, and it looks like Sanchez is going to try and pull the move off, but he doesn't have the same pace that Castro had last lap. They're still close, nearly making contact coming through Malmedy. That is so incredibly close between those drivers, and they're still going side by side a few corners down the line. But now I think Castro has lost out on that position to Sanchez, and it looked like Barry was even going to look for a move there. Well, there's Friedrich.
Oh, the Friedrich in a cloud of dust there. He may have had an off here. We're going to go back and take a look. And here he is behind that fight here, going into Bruxelles. And yeah, overcooks that entry, gets a little too much rotation, manages to keep it out of the wall, but opens the door to my cousin Craig and David Walters both get through, and Friedrich State goes from bad to worse. He was pushing that radical and beating it to death trying to get up to this train, and ran out of tires there at the end, as we thought might happen.
It was just pushing it way too hard, and sadly for him, that's going to really spell doom for his race. But never mind that. We've got the battling continuing between here. Sanchez and Castro going side by side. Ooh, that's going to be very tight going through turn 18. They made contact on exit, and they're still going to be just barely. They get single file going into the bus stop chicane, but it's not over yet. They're still feeling really racy at this stage. I'm sure Barry is looking on and seeing how hard these drivers are battling and thinking, if I just sit back here, relax, and hold off Gomez behind me, I'm just going to wait for these two knuckleheads to crash ahead of me, and I'll be able to gain 2 spots, because they're racing each other so hard. They're racing each other like they're driving in NASCAR stock cars, but they're driving in these radicals, which are so aero-sensitive that any little bit of contact will cost you badly. So these drivers are continuing to battle hard. I think Barry is sniffing blood here.
Yeah, that was pretty spectacular side-by-side in Blanchimont. That is definitely something you don't see every day, and we're being treated to some fantastic racing by some of the best esports drivers on the iRacing service and here on Apex Racing TV. And now it is Sanchez and Castro coming together. Who could have seen that coming? Virtually anybody. They were banging. Sanchez being very impatient, flashing his lights, and he gets bitten by a little side-by-side contact there, entering Lacombe. Oh boy, there's going to be some uncomfortable moments back in the team transport when this one is over. There is Sanchez there on your right. He gets turned, and boy, I don't know, it looked to me as Sanchez might have turned in on his competitor a little bit at the wrong time and kind of pit maneuvered himself, and that has broken up the top 5. Now it's Giolis, of course, now 6.5 seconds ahead from Castro, Gomez, Barry, and look at that, my cousin Gregory has moved up into P5, and there is still, my goodness, that is Barry in the back of this train now. Barry's still not satisfied, looking at Gomez, who may have gone through his tires with all that back and forth that we have been seeing, and Barry could be licking his chops to move up again. And remember, folks, Barry is your #1 driver on the season so far this year, and he definitely smells a podium here with 1 lap remaining.
And now I think the battle to watch maybe would be between Friedrich and Sanchez. They're pretty spread out right now, about 3 seconds separating them. But Friedrich and Sanchez have both worn out their tires quite badly, so I think that might be some battling there as we're seeing some shuffling there between Passan and Karakopoulos. But right now we're following Kajolis right now, who is starting the final lap. He's on the white flag, and oh no, that's your cousin there. There's Craig Gregory spinning, coming out of the bus stop. That's going to ruin his race. He was running in a fantastic top 5, but sadly for him, he's going to drop back behind Sanchez and Nunez there. Just a very simple mistake to make. You mentioned that at the start of the broadcast, how this chicane is really difficult. You gotta slow up quite badly. It's very easy to outbrake yourself, and that's very easy to spin it up coming out of this corner. We've seen so many drivers make that mistake in real life. We've seen so many drivers make that mistake in past Radical races here, and sadly for your cousin Craig Gregory, that's going to wreak havoc to his race.
Yeah, that is the trouble spot on this track. You got to get that car woed up in a hurry, and then you have to be very careful applying the throttle out of that low-speed corner, something these Radicals are not real good at. You got to be pretty judicious with that throttle application. And my cousin Craig Gregory may have been watching Ron in practice. I saw Ron immersed in a cloud of smoke there, exiting the bus stop earlier today as well. So very, very tough spot, and Gregory will hang on to the top 10, but that top 5 has vanished in a cloud of 500 horsepower tire smoke from the back of that Radical SR10.
Yeah, I made many mistakes coming through there. I was mainly outbraking myself going into the first part of that chicane, and just outbraking yourself quite badly, then having to take the shortcut, and then having to suffer from like a 4-second slowdown after that. So that was what caught me out badly, but it's such, as you said, it's a trouble spot here. It's really the only spot where these Radicals are just dealing with everything that is painful about driving this Radical. Sudden changes in weight, sudden changes in elevation, crest, trying to get on power, and also having a very heavy braking zone to slow that car down.
Yeah, and a couple of fat curbs as well. You're right, Ron. This section that we're seeing Keolis roll through now toward the checker is every element of a Radical nightmare present in just 2 corners. And there is Keolis. He has driven away, dominated. Look at that 212, 944 under race conditions, and absolutely dominant performance. He's putting down qualifying times. Ooh, a little scrap in here in the back is Bussin versus Kyriakopoulos. I don't know if Bussin has taken one away there from Kyriakopoulos, or Dennis was trying to make a move, but Bussin's going to get the better of that one for the final top 10 position. And what a race. You know, I wasn't, had some things I was expecting and some things I wasn't. It was certainly messy at the front, which I was not expecting, but some great racing with that train up front. Castro, Gomez, Berry, and Sanchez really showing how it's done. Some close and high risk, high reward racing out of these Radical SR10s. And as the back of the pack here, we're watching the beautifully named Mika Hulkinen here in that beautiful yellow car finishing his lap. And one more runner behind him to complete the field taking the green. And there he is, Chad Fox. He's the only Yankee on the grid here today, and he'll be our last runner, as we saw Hesserman, Woodward, and Ianni all bin it at different points during the race. Woodward and Ianni actually involved in that incident together in Lacombe. But wow, that was a fantastic race, Ron. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you, we were joking before the broadcast started about how we just looked through the entry list, and we were joking about how this was like our version of an all-star race here in Spa. We saw so many names that we've seen throughout this series, whether it's regardless of what track we're running on. We've seen many of these names in this field at races in the past, and they've all been very good drivers. So in the top split here, we saw plenty of mistakes, and that is something that I hinted at towards the start of the broadcast. But the fact we saw as high of a level field that we see here, and we saw so many mistakes, is really surprising. But I think the racing action itself was brilliant to watch, and if you want to tune in to any of the other racing action here on Apex Racing TV, you know where to find us, because we're not just about Radicals, we're not even just about racing as well. Right now the late Apex is going on with their 2nd episode, so if you'd like to tune into that after this broadcast wraps up in a few moments time, you know where to go. But this was just absolutely, this was another great race. We've had great racing all throughout this season. We had a fantastic race at Alton Park. We had another fantastic race last week, and we have another one this week as well.
Oh my goodness! And I didn't give Castro credit. I see another Yankee flag there, actually up on the podium. But there are our results, folks. And man, what a race! Giolis, of course, dominated, drove away, threw down some 212s during that one, which is just crazy fast. He's going to take the win. Castro and Gomez are going to round out your podium. Barry, Walters, Friedrich, Sanchez, Gomez, Gregory, and Busen will be your top 10. Kyriakopoulos, we saw him have some struggles. Murata, Bjorklund had a couple offs and was involved in that early crash. And Lacombe, Hulken, and Fox are your runners. That's 1 through 16. Or 15 rather, and then Hesterman, Woodward, and Iani bended at different points. So there is your final grid. That was a fantastic race, and you are absolutely right, Ron. Apex Racing TV is not just radicals. We have some of the best esports drivers, some of the best tracks, and some of the best cars in the business 7 days a week. And coming up just this weekend, 2 fantastic race esports events. We got Formula Ford Weekend Warriors at Laguna Seca. That's going to be a barn burner, and Spec Racer Fords back here, maybe a little bit in slow motion, but still exciting here at Spa. And next week we'll kick off strong Monday with Ricmotech World Challenge Series. That's a multi-class prototype versus GT3 event taking place at Circulus Sarth, Le Mans. So that is not one to miss. So make sure and subscribe to Apex Racing TV and hit that notification button. You don't want to miss anything good that we've got going on, because it is more or less non-stop here. And let me just take a quick peek and outside our door, see if there's anybody waiting to talk to us. I'm gonna say not. And folks, don't forget, if you participate in this, you don't have to be on the podium to stop by and chat with us a little bit and tell us your impressions of the race. But my goodness, that is going to wrap up this presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge for Apex Racing TV. I am James Gregory. Beside me, Ron Mons, and in our production booth, Samuli Kumo. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us, and have a fantastic weekend.